Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to break down the totally fascinating core concepts from Thea Alexander's book, Year 2150. We're basically going on a profound spiritual journey between two vastly different eras. Imagine for a second going to sleep in a polluted, divided, and war-torn world, only to wake up in a flawless, telepathic utopia 174 years in the future. So which one's the dream? And which one is reality? That's the central dilemma we're unpacking today. It really forces us to question the very fabric of how we experience life. Section 1. The Two Realities of John Lake. Let's start our journey right at the center of this by looking at our protagonist, whose consciousness is quite literally split across time. Consider the stark contrast we're dealing with here. In 1976, John is a Vietnam veteran, he's missing a leg, and he's just grinding through his academic studies in a freezing, cynical New York City. His day-to-day is filled with physical pain, societal tension, and just profound limitations. But when he goes to sleep, his consciousness travels to the year 2150, into an advanced astral body. Suddenly he has two legs, flawless health, and he's experiencing a world completely free of pain, disease, and conflict. He can actually feel the grass, he communicates perfectly. It's an incredibly jarring dual existence, and it makes him question absolutely everything he thought he knew about the universe. Now, this isn't just a simple jump in time. We're talking about a complete planetary evolution. According to historical data kept by a supercomputer in 2050, the selfish micro-society of the 1970s was actively destroying the planet. We're talking rampant pollution, severe overpopulation, and endless wars driven by fragile egos. That older society actually collapses entirely by the year 2000. It just couldn't sustain its own greed. But the good news? Humanity evolves rather than perishes. By 2050, the Earth is completely healed, and people live in what they call a macro-society, which is deeply rooted in telepathic harmony and a genuine respect for the planet itself. Section 2. Micro versus macro. This brings us to the philosophical backbone of the entire narrative, this massive clash between two completely opposing worldviews. This is a fundamental paradigm shift. We're moving from viewing ourselves as isolated victims to realizing we are the completely interconnected creators of our universe. Think about the mindset for a second. The micro-person of 1976 sees themselves as totally separate from everyone else. They've got these mental blinders on, acting purely out of self-preservation, jealousy, and fear. And ironically, that's exactly what leads to their destruction. They believe life just happens to them. The macro-person of 2150, on the other hand, understands that the universe is a single, indivisible mind. They know that what they do to others, they are literally doing to themselves. They recognize that they actively create their own reality, so there's absolutely zero room for victimhood. Because of this awareness, the very structure of humanity completely transforms. Nations, classes, religions, entirely gone. In their place is this unified society where telepathy, meaning literal mind-to-mind communication, and psychokinesis are just standard everyday human abilities. Can you imagine a world where you can hear the thoughts of everyone around you? Because there are no secrets, deceit is basically impossible. You simply can't lie to someone who can feel your exact intentions. And the absolute foundation of all this is personal responsibility. You are the architect of your life. This future isn't driven just by cool advanced technology, but by a radical spiritual evolution that cuts out fear and division right at the source. Section 3. Karma and the Creation of Reality. To really understand how they achieved this profound peace, we need to dive into the spiritual laws that govern this macro world. In this future, karma is not viewed as some mystical punishment or a cosmic judge waiting to strike you down. Not at all. It's a literal mechanism. It's a universal law of physics where your thoughts actually build your physical reality. Now, back in 1976, karma sounds a bit like a New Age philosophy, right? But in 2150, they treat it exactly like Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Every single thought you have, whether it's selfish or loving, acts as a physical energy wave that alters the world around you, and then it inevitably bounces right back to its creator. You literally reap what you sow, and you do it instantly and measurably. There's a brilliant quote from the Universal Information Service in 2050 that delivers a pretty harsh truth. It says, "Those who forget their past are doomed to repeat it until they accept that they are completely responsible for their current situation." The book explains that micro-people try to use what they call illusory amnesia. Basically, they desperately want to forget their past mistakes or just blame them on someone else, so they don't have to feel the guilt. But here's the catch. By running away from that responsibility and denying their own actions, they just trap themselves in a relentless cycle of suffering, repeating the exact same painful lessons over and over again. And then there's reincarnation. In 2050, it isn't just a belief system. It's treated as an objective, measurable scientific fact that is absolutely essential for personal evolution. It's basically the core physics of the soul. The idea is that souls originated in a perfectly balanced spiritual matrix, slowly evolved through animal forms, and now continuously reincarnate into human bodies. The ultimate goal across all these countless lifetimes? To learn, to experience every single facet of existence, and eventually shed that selfish micro-perspective to evolve back into full macro awareness. You don't just die and disappear. You keep returning to the classroom until you've fully mastered the lesson. Section 4. Life in a macro society. So, how does this incredibly deep spiritual awareness translate into daily life? Let's dive into how these people actually function on a normal day. In the macro world, society isn't structured by your bank account, your fame, or your political power. It's structured by spiritual awareness, and this is dynamically reflected in the color of their universal tunics. These tunics are amazing. They act like millions of tiny lenses that read and display a person's exact aura. John, for example, is just starting out and still holding on to a lot of fear, so he wears gray, representing level 1. But as a person grows in empathy, leadership, and wisdom, their tunic color actually shifts. It moves through purple for leadership, green for healing, all the way to a brilliant white at level 10, which represents perfect balance. There's literally no faking your status or pretending to be enlightened here. Your spiritual maturity is woven right into the clothes on your back for everyone to see. Human connection is also totally reinvented. Take alpha partners, like John and his guide Carol. They share this incredible bond that is completely free of neurotic jealousy. In the macro world, love is not about ownership. They actually look back at 20th century romance as being heavily rooted in insecurity, possessiveness, and the constant fear of loss. Alpha partners, on the other hand, are quite literally two halves of the same spiritual matrix. They're perfectly balanced and experience complete mental, spiritual, and physical intimacy without ever feeling the need to control or restrict each other. It's a love based entirely on infinite freedom instead of limitation. 300 million. That's a huge number, right? Well, that is the entire global population in 2050. This deliberate, massive reduction is exactly what allowed the Earth's oceans and forests to heal completely. The macro society strictly controls birth rates. Only those who are spiritually, mentally, and physically fully prepared, usually around level 7 awareness, are allowed to bring new life into the world. It's a radical shift from the micro era of 1976, where people reproduced pretty recklessly without the means or emotional maturity to support their kids, which nearly destroyed the planet's fragile ecosystem in the process. This pursuit of perfect balance even extends to their metric time system. Everything in 2150 is designed for profound efficiency and harmony. By applying base 10 mathematics to time, they've completely stripped away the arbitrary confusion of our 12 months, 24 hours, and 60 minutes. Get this, a year is exactly 10 months, or 100 days. A day is 10 hours, an hour is 100 minutes, and a minute is 100 seconds. It creates this super streamlined framework that perfectly mirrors the rational, interconnected order of their entire advanced society. Section 5, Reality Check. Now, despite the overwhelming beauty of this utopian future, John is constantly pulled right back to the harshness of 1976, and it leads to a massive internal conflict. His best friend Carl really grounds the story with some heavy skepticism. He warns John, saying, "If we both take this seriously, we're headed straight for the madhouse." Carl represents 20th century pragmatism at its absolute core. He loves John deeply, but he rightly points out that sudden personality changes, talking to invisible guides, and vivid delusions of a perfect future utopia, well, those are classic textbook symptoms of severe mental illness. Carl really forces us, the viewer, to honestly ask, is John experiencing a genuine spiritual awakening, or is he having a tragic, psychotic break? This creates a huge ideological standoff. Is John's mind expanding, or is it just completely fracturing under the immense weight of his 1976 life? From John's point of view, he's being educated by this beautiful, advanced society, learning truths that are literally going to save his soul. But if you look at the exact same data through Carl's eyes, John is a severely traumatized amputee who is trying to escape the intense pressures of his doctoral thesis and the lingering awful horrors of the Vietnam War by retreating into an elaborate, hallucinated dream world. And honestly, both perspectives are incredibly compelling and totally rational within their own frameworks. To settle this debate once and for all, they make a high-stakes wager. John agrees with Carl that if this future is real, its science should be completely testable. It shouldn't just exist in his head. So if John can learn verifiable macro abilities, things like telepathy or clairvoyance in 2150, and successfully demonstrate those powers back in 1976, Carl promises to admit the future is real. But if John fails to produce a single shred of physical evidence, he promises to accept that he's delusional and will immediately go seek professional psychiatric help. It really grounds this vast cosmic spiritual journey in a very human, very high-stakes reality. As we wrap up this explainer, we're left with a deeply powerful question about our own lives and our willingness to shed our micro-limitations. Think about this for a second. If your thoughts literally built the physical world around you right now, what kind of world would you be living in today? Would it be a micro world defined by fear, division, and constantly being on the defense? Or would it be a macro world of limitless potential and unity? Think about that for a while and keep exploring.